Welcome to the weekly sermon podcast from Platte Woods United Methodist Church. We are a community seeking to lead people to follow Jesus. If you would like information on weekly service times or ways to connect, please visit plattwoodschurch.org.
Hello and welcome to Platte Woods Church. My name is Evie Martin and I'm the lead pastor here. I welcome you. Thanks for joining us today. If it's your very first time, if this is the first time you joined us online, I appreciate you taking time to check us out. I hope that if you find something today that resonates with you or inspires you or speaks to you, that you will connect with us. You'll see a link below to our website where you can go and fill out a connect form, and one of the pastors will be able to reach out to you this week just to say hello. So thanks for joining us. We want to be a church where all people feel welcome, just exactly as they are, where you can bring your concerns and your questions, you can bring all of your struggles and all of your celebrations. But thanks to all of you for joining us this morning. A lot of you already know that an early part of my ministry was spent overseas, living and serving in the country of Mozambique, which is a large country on the southeast coast of Africa. And the Methodist Church is quite strong there, and so over the last decade, I've been able to return 11 times, often with church groups, to this place that holds a big part of my heart. And one of my most favorite things about these trips, in addition to celebrating clean water in a community or building relationships with families and pastors and churches, of course, my third favorite thing about these trips is to watch Americans experience local transportation. As you might imagine, a personal vehicle is far from the norm. Bicycles, motorbikes, or one's own 2 feet are about as personal as it gets in most places. And so there's an extensive network of local transportation in vehicles called chapas. And a ride in one of these 15-passenger Toyota vans is pretty affordable. It will get you remarkably close to wherever you need to go in just about any part of the country. But when I say 15-passenger, I should probably clarify that really suggests more of a minimum than a maximum. I'm pretty sure kids don't count in the total. And since chapas are a primary mode of transport, people have stuff they need to get places too. Stuff like buckets of tomatoes or 50-pound bags of rice, live chickens, yes, maybe even a goat every now and then. Needless to say, getting from point A to point B is a little different than what you might experience on your daily commute. When I take a group, though, we usually rent one of these vehicles for the week. So we have particular places that we need to go, and a gaggle of usually white Americans would be utterly helpless without the guidance of a driver who knows the area and the leadership of our friends and colleagues on the ground. So my favorite part of the week is often the first day out. We load into our personal chapa and hit the road to visit a church or a local school or a well. 10 people spread out over 15 seats is not terribly uncomfortable. So people kick back, put their feet up, stretch out, even set their backpacks on the seat next to them for a minute. Soon enough, though, without fail, usually within 10 minutes of the driver will slow down and pull off to the side of the road, honking and waving at somebody. Our translator will open the side door, greet a pedestrian, someone we've never seen before, as they climb in and join us. The group will go quiet. They'll look at each other, look at me. I just smile. A few minutes later, the driver will slow down again, pull off to the side of the road, honk, wave, greet someone else on foot. They too will hop in and greet us. Bon dia, good day, they'll say. This goes on for the whole trip. A 30-minute drive will end up taking an hour because the same pattern will continue all along the route to the point that eventually someone in the group is sitting on someone else's lap and someone's standing kind of crouched over in that small space between the sliding door and one of the bench seats. People might get out along the way, or they might ride all the way with us. Someone in the group might ask our friend and guide, whose name is Easy, who are all these people? Usually, they're any combination of the driver's cousin or our interpreter's brother-in-law's friend or congregation members of the church that we're going to visit. And some just appreciate a lift a little ways down the road. Others are joining us for the whole journey. But invariably, if one of our group who is in the cramped quarters of their fourth row seat now should look with concern at Easy and say, "Are we going to pick up anybody else?" He'll just grin broadly and say, "There's always room for one more." This reality of transportation in Mozambique has always stuck with me as a metaphor for the church. In God's family, no matter where we're going, or how comfortable we are, or how many detours and stops there are along the way, there is always room for one more in our bus. It's easy for us to forget that once we're already on the bus because we've got a seat. Somebody made room for us, so we're good. But Jesus sees it a little differently. This may be a familiar story to some, but Jesus talks to his disciples about where his focus is and where theirs should be also. In Matthew chapter 18, we'll start in verse 12. "What do you think? If someone had 100 sheep and one of them wandered off, wouldn't he leave the 99 on the hillsides and go in search for the one that wandered off? If he finds it, I assure you that he is happier about having that one sheep than about the 99 who didn't wander off. In the same way, my Father who is in heaven doesn't want to lose one of these little ones." I have literally zero experience with sheep. I don't know what it's like to deal with one, much less 99. But I imagine that if I were standing in a field trying to keep track of 100 sheep, it wouldn't feel very much different at all if there were only 99. I doubt that I would even notice the difference. But God does. God appears very unconcerned with the 99. God is dead set on the one that isn't there. God's passion, God's frantic love, God's relentless searching is dedicated to the one sheep who is isolated, alone, separated, perhaps even wandering toward danger or caught in a thorny bush or a hunter's snare. If this is where the heart of our shepherd is, shouldn't we follow? Are we paying attention? Are we taking note of the ones who are missing, the people in our lives, in our worlds, who have no flock, who are struggling on their own, who, even though they might seem to have it all together, have no idea of the outrageous love Jesus has for them, and so they're lost and they're wandering toward a dangerous cliff? Are we able to look beyond our comfort to notice those who are not here? It's not always easy to do. And sometimes we feel like Jesus is a little insensitive in this story, because if we're already here, we realize pretty quickly that we're the 99. And the shepherd just leaves us. Verse 14 says he's happier about the one that he finds than the rest he left behind. Well, we don't need to get too touchy about this. Think about it. The 99 are fine. They are warm together. There is safety in numbers. They have each other already. The 99 are where they are supposed to be. It's not that he's unhappy with them. He just knows they're fine. He doesn't have to worry about them for a minute. You know the truth of this dynamic if you've ever lost anything. Maybe most poignantly, lost track of a kid at a grocery store or a mall. You don't stop loving your other kids when you frantically start running through the aisles and enlisting every store employee to find your wayward child. You just recognize the urgency of attention that your one child needs when she's separated from you. For those of us who are already here, who have found an expression of God's love for us in this community that we call church, what urgency of attention have we given to our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues who may not even know that there is a loving parent wreaking havoc at the Hy-Vee searching for them? If church is a place in our lives that means something to us, if following Jesus has changed your life, which it should, by the way, if we know that God loves us because we experience it here with one another, then how can we possibly keep that to ourselves? It should be nearly impossible to contain our desire to share that love and an invitation to find a spiritual home here with others. And yet, we don't always do that, do we? We often struggle to talk with other people about God or our own faith in Jesus. We much more eagerly tell someone about an amazing restaurant that they have to try or a movie that they must see than about our church where we have encountered the love of the very one who created us. Why is it so much easier to recommend a good dentist or plumber or babysitter than to invite someone to your church? A few reasons, perhaps. One, we're comfortable. Coming to church, even online, is part of our habit, our weekly, let's be honest, monthly for some of you, ritual. We know our group of people. We sit in the same place every week, which is currently on the couch, I know, but we're familiar with the songs. We've carved out our place and it feels comfortable. Why mess with a good thing? Inviting someone else into that is like another passenger climbing into the shapa, right? I might have to scoot over from my metaphorical or literal seat that I've claimed for myself. I may be required to relinquish some of my territory or share the people that I love with other people that I don't know as well. For all I know, someone may get on the bus with a chicken. And then what are we going to do about that? Surely we don't want chickens, do we? We get comfortable, which makes us forget how significant it is to have a church family in the first place. But then it also makes it harder to give up some of that comfort to make space for one more. Someone was kind enough to make a space for me, and now I'm here, but I kind of like it just as it is, so no need to get uncomfortable for someone who's not here. Another reason might be that we worry people won't like it. What if I invite someone to my church, which I dearly love, but because I love it, I'm willing to overlook some of our faults and our foibles. But maybe I'm not as confident that my friend will have a good experience. What is it that they will find if they, in fact, accept my invitation? I get it. That's a real concern. We don't rave about restaurants unless the food, the service, the whole experience is flawless. And we'll talk more about this part next week, about the kind of community we want to be, the kind of welcome we want to give for anyone who might come to us seeking an experience of God's love. The church isn't meant to be flawless, far from it, in fact. But it is meant to receive flaws with grace and to be a place where people know that they belong. Or maybe we just don't pay that much attention to the one. Maybe we don't think about inviting them in because we just don't think they're interested. If they don't think they need it, why should we presume that they do? Their life seems pretty well put together. Why run the risk of being that religious weirdo who talks about Jesus and invites them to church? Okay, that's fair. But then isn't that really more about you than about them? And you've already got the 99 who know you're not totally crazy. What's the risk, really? All they can do is say no. But you know what? When your friend's picture-perfect life begins to falter, or when a self-sufficient family member suddenly gets sick, or when the loneliness and isolation of our culture and climate finally pushes your colleague to the edge, they will likely think of you and of your invitation, because everyone needs love. Everyone needs a family of acceptance and imperfection and grace. Everyone needs to know that there is something bigger than themselves, that they are not lost, that they belong to a whole flock of smelly, bumbling sheep whose shepherd has left to search every cliff and crevice for them. In the family of God, there is always room for one more. It is our task and our privilege not just to half-heartedly scoot over a little bit to make space when someone comes in, but to actively, eagerly, passionately go in search of those who aren't here yet. To be thinking about the one to bring them to the forefront of our minds just as they are at the forefront of God's. That's my challenge to you this week. Who is your one? Who is one person that when you stop and think about it long enough may not have a real experience of God's love and grace in their lives? They may not have a sense of real belonging. Write their name down. Put it in a place where you'll remember to pray for them. Listen to what God puts on your heart for that person. And start thinking about what you will invite them to. Sunday worship is, of course, an obvious opportunity. But we're not even meeting in person right now, you might say. How am I supposed to invite them? Well, right now may actually be the easiest time in the history of church to invite someone. However you watch online, invite someone else to watch with you. Send a text or a call or an email. Hey, I found a lot of encouragement from my church in this time recently. I'd love for you to watch at the same time that I'm going to watch this weekend. Here's how I do it. And then follow up with them. You're their connecting point. Talk with them about it. You might think that that won't make any difference, but Pew Research data shows that when people start attending a new church or they start coming to church for the very first time, 82% go after having talked to someone that they know from that church. 82%. There is no marketing strategy of any kind that's going to yield those kinds of results. The family of God is people. People connect to people, not clever branding or good swag or a fancy building or even good sermons. They know they belong when they have a connection with the people, and that's you. What if you started thinking about your faith life through the lens of invitation? What might you invite that one person into? Worship, sure. But what about your Sunday school class or your small group? What about youth group, small group or large? What about a conversation about the Bible or a care visit to a congregation member? Or how about an act of service, like the blood drive coming up this month, or serving a meal at Iglesia de Camino? What if we begin to think of all of these things as entry points for someone who is not yet here to come and join in the journey? None of us follow Jesus alone. We're not meant to. We do it together. And there's always room for one more. Someone once made room for us, so now we have the chance to live our faith, making room for others as we go. Who are you going to invite? Will you pray with me? God, you are our good shepherd. Your love runs after us when we wander, when we are lost, when we are stuck. And you give us this gift of a flock under your care. Break open our hearts for the sake of those in our lives who need a place to belong. Give us empathy to see past their outer shell. Give us wisdom to start a conversation that matters. Give us the generosity to extend an invitation and make room for one more in our midst. In the name of Jesus Christ, who is both Lamb and Shepherd. Amen.